The Pripyat Project. I walked down the long driveway, imagining it once adorned by large leafy greenery, which was about as far from the truth as you could get. This was Pripyat, near Chernobyl, and we have all learned of the horrors that occurred there. I was actually there on a research project for university, looking into the truth behind the stories. Did the experiments really happen? What became of the subjects, and were there any survivors, and if so, how long did they survive? As I continued up the driveway, I saw it, Pripyat General Infirmary. As imposing as it was infamous in the Ukraine, its reputation preceded it, but what I saw wasn't what I expected. It was a stunningly beautiful building that defied the terrors and secret it held within the walls. I paused briefly as I clasped my hands around the door handle, hesitant to enter. As I got past the apprehension and entered, my heart sank a little as I wondered what I may uncover. I cautiously made my way through the vast reception area. Strange sounds seemed to surround me immediately, echoing throughout the room. I frantically made my way through the double doors into the medical sanitary unit at the rear of the hospital, where the majority of my research was to be conducted. I was in the unit for around 25 minutes before I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. It appeared to be someone strapped onto a hospital bed, trying to scream to no avail. Stood looming over him was a tall figure dressed in white with a surgical mask over his mouth. I slowly closed in to see exactly what was happening. It was as if I wasn't there. Not one of them acknowledged my presence in the room. It was then I realized I was just watching what was happening. These were actual reenactments of the experiments, performed by the actual doctors who carried them out. Well, their spirits, that is. From what I could interpret, the spirits had not dealt with the horrors they had carried out and so couldn't cross over. They were forever trapped in this world, carrying out their experiments. I watched with terrified curiosity as the doctor injected the subject, known as number 8129, if his jumpsuit was anything to go by, in the neck with a bright yellow liquid. A couple of minutes passed and the man on the bed started to convulse. The veins in his neck pulsated and he let out what I suspect was a scream. Just then his eyes stood out in a bright green color and his body and face became disfigured. Just what had they put inside him? All the time I was taking notes and recording the experiences I had whilst there. No one back at the university would believe the things I had seen. That I do know. But for now I continued in what I had come to do, uncover the truth. Making my way into the next cubicle, I was horrified to see the next subject was a child. A girl of around 13 years old being held down by two nurses whilst being forced to drink what was now a bright orange liquid. I didn't want to stay, but I felt I had to see this through to the end, whatever the outcome. Unlike the male from the previous cubicle, the effects of the liquid didn't take hold straight away. Some 20 minutes passed, and from all appearances, the girl seemed normal. But that was to be short-lived. As the nurses released her, she jumped up and sank her teeth into the throats of one of them, ripping it out. Her face covered in the blood of the nurse, she climbed down off the bed and attacked the second nurse. Taking hold of her leg, she drew herself up and speared her in the stomach with her bare hands, pulling them apart to expose her insides. It appeared the toxin she had ingested had given her both unrivaled strength and bloodlust. I just cannot understand what they were trying to do here. As I turned to walk away, I couldn't help but wonder what happened to the girl afterwards. That was duly put to rest, as what I can only summarize was a Soviet soldier appeared and shot the girl once through the head. I couldn't believe or understand what I was seeing. What was the benefit of these tragedies? What did they expect to happen? If I didn't know better, I'd say they were trying to create the ultimate fighting force. But what was the toxin they were using? And did it ever work? We know now that it was a type of radioactive toxin and that, no, it didn't work. But it didn't stop them from trying. My next encounter was in a room full of the staff that carried these horrific tests out. They were all sat drinking coffee, laughing and smiling as if they were in a staff room at the local high school. I found it all quite disturbing and began to regret ever coming here. Places like this need to be left well alone, I decided. I wanted to leave, but I felt myself being drawn further and further in, deeper into the inner sanctum of this terrible place, wanting to find out more, to know more. I could feel myself being drawn towards the basement. My stomach tightened and my fists clenched, but I carried on towards the stairs. I opened the door and suddenly I smelled the odor of death and felt queasy for a moment. Eventually, I ventured carefully forward down the stairs into what can only be described as a scene from your worst nightmare. Skulls and human remains scattered everywhere, all coated in a thin layer of dust the same color as the little girl's toxin. As I walked through the basement, I found it hard to imagine what had actually gone on here, even though I had strangely witnessed some of the horrors firsthand. I carefully made my way across the basement to the far wall, where a second flight of stairs could be found, avoiding standing on anything as these people deserved to be left in peace, as much as possible anyway. I decided I had seen enough and I had to get out of there for my own sake. Making my way back through the reception area and out of the door, I couldn't help but feel a little empty and a little sad. I started down the wide, concrete steps, but halfway turned to take one last look at the place where I had the most emotional experience of my life. Upon my return to university, I felt obliged to leave what I had seen and change the focus of my study to the necessity of medical research.